Okay, so welcome everybody.
Give it a second. The YouTube supposedly takes a little while to get going.
Okay,
No, now it's going.
now it's going. Welcome to Monday Musings. I'm Dr. Syra and I am a transpersonal therapist with Dragonfly Wellness, also the clinical director and co-founder of Dragonfly Academy.
And I'm Faison, life coach and a co-founder at Dragonfly Wellness and Academy. We're what is this? Our We got two more after this. We have two more Monday musings after tonight.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, so we're down to the last three?
last three.
And my hair is a disaster. Sorry, I'm so distracted because it just
I
fell down before I...
can't believe you showed up like this.
Sorry, folks. It's just falling around. Oh
Do,
no.
do you want to get going, or you want to continue making your hair
I'll,
first?
I'll
Yeah. So while Sarah makes her hair, yeah. So we've got two more after tonight. So we've got basically down to our last three Monday musings. Um, it's kind of exciting times, sad times, exciting times as well, for to kind of create space for new opportunities. Um, are you any kind of logistics before we get going?
um
Oh,
oh,
what you? I just thought of one,
okay,
but
you go first.
just Lucas got his Canadian counseling number or
Yeah.
registration. So that came through.
Canadian
Uh,
certified counselor.
Canadian Certified Counselor (CCC).
Yeah.
So that just came through, and I know he's applying for the BCRCC as well. But all of that fun stuff. So it's exciting. Like people, it's fun to see growth within the team as well.
And that impacts you or people who are watching if you are looking for a therapist, and you're looking to have that covered by your extended health insurance provider. Lucas might be covered now. Every health insurance provider provides different things, so it's kind of something to look into if you're looking to have your therapy sessions covered. That's a possibility now with Lucas and Ariane as well. I'm seeing less people individually now, kind of moving into more group work and our big program that we're planning, and my own going back to school as a student myself as I train in a different kind of branch of psychotherapy. So I'm not doing as much of that individual work as much anymore.
Right.
Faison's learning hypnosis.
Yes, I've also gone back to school
Yeah.
and yeah, learning about hypnotherapy, and it's exciting. It's an interesting. I mean, we've been kind of doing it, I guess. Like the more and more I'm learning, I'm like, oh, I already do that with my clients, and I already do that with my
But
clients.
now
So
you understand the science of
yeah,
how it
yeah,
works.
and being very aware of what's happening sometimes, because I think there is obviously um, an ethical framework that we must follow, right? So so it's good to have that awareness. Saying all of that,
I guess the
to,
only announcement that I have is Monique and I were talking to. So Monique is our one of our business partners, and she offers a course called the energetic centering technique. And this is a very interesting technique that she's developed over the years using different modalities that helps us manage our feelings as they come up without letting them overwhelm us, right? So it's like a feeling comes up and like, what do you do about that? And so she has kind of a very simple, 3 or 4 step process that you go through to just diffuse the feelings as they come up. And so you get you're emotionally regulated, which makes us more kind of aligned to our vision and our purpose and our calling. When emotions are in charge, we can feel very ungrounded. And so her class is about kind of really aligning that. And she offers it every so often. And there's another one that she's going to be offering soon. So that'll come out in the newsletter once we've got a date for that. I know she's doing her in-person one in May the 4th, I think is the Saturday. But there's going to be an online one as well for those who are calling in from different places.
beautiful.
So keep an eye out on
So
your newsletter for
lots of them will
information.
go.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I mean, talking about emotional centering, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, if we kind of transition to our topic for tonight,
Mm-hmm.
the masculine and feminine energies,
Mm-hmm.
and how it impacts perfectionism. We've
Right.
been talking this month about perfectionism. So how does kind of the lack of, first of all, why don't you describe what you mean by masculine, feminine energy?
Right.
Because it's not talking about a gender,
Right.
right? It's not gender specific, at
Right.
least from our perspective. So we want to describe them, but then also describe kind of how sometimes the lack of uh, emotional maturity or lack of uh, emotional balance, control, whatever it might be, how it impacts both of those energies.
Excuse my yawn. Whew. It's been one of those
Wow.
long, long
Wow.
days. It's been a long. And
Like,
it's only Monday. Oh my goodness.
go to sleep with you guys here.
Oh, my apologies for my yawning, but you see me live as I am. Okay, so the masculine and the feminine. So what I mean when I use those words, it's not about like male or female. So kind of put that aside. It's not about men and women or anything like that. It's about the masculine principle and the feminine principle. So another way to think about it is yin and yang. Okay, so that's another kind of language that describes a very similar thing. So yang energy, masculine energy, is like a line, right? So it's about direction and focus and discipline and goals and structure and movement, and it kind of has that line energy. Whereas the feminine energy or the yin energy has more of a circle energy. So it's more about like flow and connection and spontaneity and play and um, lightheartedness. That's kind of the feminine energy. So again, whatever your particular gender is, that's not the point. All of us have masculine and feminine energy within us. Now, we can also get in balance, like out of balance with each of these. So, if we're out of balance in our masculine, that's the person who's like go, 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 always doing, gets burnt out, really, really busy all the time, needs to achieve, needs to do more, really, really kind of like hyper busy, or maybe workaholic, or just going doing all the time, and there's not a lot of room for play or pleasure or lightheartedness or rest. It's just go, 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 go. That's the person who's unbalanced in their masculine energy. Then there's the person who's unbalanced in their feminine energy, or the untrue feminine, and that's the person who like doesn't do much, like just always like in chaos and in drama and like lots of emotion and kind of spinning and not really able to like do stuff. It's There's a lot of being, but there's not a lot of doing, and to the point where it becomes kind of stuck, right? So another metaphor that we can use for the masculine and the feminine are the untrue masculine as the rock and the untrue feminine as the swamp, right? And we've talked about this before. This isn't the first time that we brought these concepts. So maybe this is familiar for some of the people who have been coming for a while. The rock and the swamp. Now, with perfectionism, um, the untrue masculine is a slippery slope into perfectionism, because in the untrue masculine, remember, it's about like doing and like go, 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 and things have to be a certain way, and that rigidity, right? That control and rigidity, and it gets really like stuck and stoic. And that's kind of, it can look like achievement, it can look like excellence, but when it's coming from a place of it has to be perfect or I'm not worthy, then we're kind of slipping into some of that the unconscious, kind of dangerous unconscious
Yeah.
mindset there.
Yeah. Um, there's a question here. Um, if you are more emotional, does that mean you have more feminine
Feminine
energy?
energy. So that's a really good question. So usually when we say more emotional, we don't we what we mean is more in touch with collapsed emotion. So like sadness is a collapsed emotion, right? Anger is also an emotion, but when people say you're so emotional, they don't usually mean you have an anger management problem.
Or you're so anxious, like you know, how I used to be when we had to go on a road trip. Let's
That was
go.
that was emotional, but it
It's
looked
5:01. Let's go.
right. So I think what you're saying, if you're more emotional, do you mean do you cry more? Like if you're more in
Yeah.
touch with tears, right? That's kind of what we think of when we say emotional. And so the feminine energy is the person who's the untrue. Okay, because again, there's the balanced feminine, and then there's the imbalance or the out of balance, right? So the out of balance feminine would be the person who the emotions just always are in charge, right? You're not in charge of your emotions are just in charge of you. And that's not just sad emotions, that's also the anger or the overwhelm or the anxiety, those emotions as well, where I'm at the mercy of all of these,
Hmm.
inner states. My inner states are the most important thing. Then I'm in the untrue feminine.
Right.
When the inner states don't matter at all, and I'm just going for it and I'm just doing stuff and I'm disconnected from my inside, that's the untrue
And
masculine.
I think I don't well, I don't know about fully about when we're not feeling any emotions. Because at that point I think we are feeling something that we might not want, right? Like it's just
But we're guarded against it.
yeah,
We've
yeah, that
developed a mechanism to
right, that
not
there's a
feel,
right.
right?
And so part of my thing with is when I work with men is around emotional maturity and emotional flexibility.
Okay.
Right? But
What's
what
that
I'm
mean?
because I think what happens from a masculine energy perspective, and this doesn't have to be just with men,
Mm-hmm.
could be women who are more in touch with this part of their life, is that we become inflexible, we become rigid
Mm-hmm.
with uh, how certain things need to be,
Mm-hmm.
how certain people need to act, right? Like everything is like
The
if
rules.
yeah, exactly, right? Like we knew somebody who, if you didn't say hello to in the first 5 seconds of entering, you're like, you might as
You
well
hear
be,
it for the rest of
yeah,
your
you
life.
might as well be dead to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like but so I think like we become rigid, and I think there is emotion behind it. There's this sense of anxiety, sense of all, like it's not an emotion like joy and sadness
Right.
and anger, but there is some sort of rigidity, some sort of emotion or lack. Maybe it's the lack of emotion is the emotion. I don't know if that makes sense, but
The numbness.
the numbness,
Yeah.
yeah,
So a lot of people who are caught in the untrue masculine are also experience numbness when they try to tune into their emotion or anger. They might be able to experience anger or numbness as their
right.
emotional palette. Somebody's asking, type A personality is more masculine energy. Yeah, so that's kind of how we've described those kind of go-getters, high achievers. They tend to have that masculine energy. They can also tip in right into that untrue masculine, where now I don't know how to just relax. I don't know what to do with my free time. Even my holidays are full of activities and to-dos. I don't stop. I don't be. I just do. So that's the danger. And when we think about the way that our society is structured, it's very much supportive of the go, do, achieve. That's we're celebrated for that.
Yeah.
And so it can be confusing to people because they're like, well, isn't that what I'm supposed to? Isn't it
So
good?
so how do you get in touch with these both masculine and feminine energies? Like, what are some of the processes of getting in touch
Mm-hmm.
for yourself, right? Like, because you were saying, okay, yes, we need to be balanced, like, because there's, one of the metaphors I give is that river and the bank,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when the river is flowing and there's a bank alongside, it's like everything's flowing. It doesn't, because if the bank wasn't there, the river would just
Mm-hmm.
flood the fields,
Right.
right? And it wouldn't flow where water wouldn't go where it needs to. Now, and if the water was too much, right? Like it just didn't care about the bank, again, it would flood and it wouldn't get to where it needed to. Or if you're really rigid, like there's all of these uh, barriers that get put into place, it stops the flow,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if we think about a river that needs to go properly, like a flow, but you need that proper structure and the discipline and systems in place to allow for that freedom to flow,
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise it feels overwhelming,
Mm-hmm.
right? So how do you get in touch with, how do you experience that?
Mm-hmm.
How do you experience not just the flow, but also this control is a,
The structure,
yeah,
the discipline, the
yeah.
order. So our teachers say, like Henri and Chuck, they say it starts with the feminine principle. So the inspiration has to come first. And this, because the feminine is about connection to ourself, connection to others. And if we're disconnected from ourselves, we don't even know what we want. We don't even know what direction we should be moving in or what feels right to us. So the first step is to get in touch with that feminine principle, which is about being, which is about softening, which is about play and ease and fun. So when I have people, for example, who are burnt out, that's one of the things we do first is we actually look for the things that bring you pleasure. Right? That's what often drops off when people get super busy. They stop doing the things that made them smile, and then there's nothing left to smile about. So it's this vicious circle. So we would start with the feminine. We kind of get back in touch with like, where am I in all this? Can I introduce laughter and humor and lightheartedness into my day to start?
How do you get in touch with that? For some people, I think even if we know
Okay,
the concepts, but yeah,
simple way is hang out with somebody funny. There might be somebody in your life who makes you laugh. Spend time with them. Or watch
that's why you've been hanging out with me
for
all this time.
17 years, yes. You
So I
make
make
me
you
laugh.
laugh.
If it wasn't for that, man,
I just need to go now. I need to go find somebody who makes me laugh.
well, that's why you go to comedy shows. Somebody else can make you right? But having people in your life that make you laugh, or if you don't have people in your life, you can watch a Netflix, special. I have a show right now that I'm watching. It just makes me laugh, right? It's just a silly 20-minute sitcom thing and it makes me laugh. So having some way to laugh and be lighthearted regularly, that's something you can do. That's really simple, right? Another way to get in touch with the feminine is to do something creative, right? So something that kind of gets those creative juices going. That could be something as simple as, for me, I like to scrapbook. So I like to look at magazines and cut out pictures and then put them on a paper. And I just like doing that, bringing things together in a new way. Some people might like to draw or journal or write poetry or sing or bake, or, there's all these different things you can do that are creative. So that's another way to get in touch with the feminine, is to get in touch with your creativity. A really easy way to get in touch with the feminine is to be around little kids. Spend time with little kids, like under 7, right? Where because they've got that curiosity and that and not try to, like, and not your own kids, like other other people's well-behaved children. Get around them, because they remind us of how to see the world through that innocence and that sweetness, right? So that's another way to get in touch with the feminine. Also, pets, animals that are, that you really care for, another way to get in touch with the feminine. So there's lots of nature, going for walks in nature. So all of these things, what they do is they invite us to be rather than to think or to do. All of these things I'm describing. So finding ways that you can just be in the moment. Reading, for some people, reading a novel is another way to get into the feminine. So once we're in touch with the feminine and once we've kind of reconnected with ourselves, then the next opportunity is to then use the masculine to support that. Okay, so say, for example, I love to read. Okay, so part of the masculine is around discipline, right? So one of the things that I've disciplined myself to do, because I love to read, is at lunchtime, I don't take my phone with me. When I take my lunch break, and I go and I move to a separate, like, I get out of my office, I go to a separate space, and I read my book and I eat my lunch. I don't talk to people, I don't answer my phone, I don't scroll, I just read my book. But I've had to have that discipline to do that, and to put the structure in place so that I get to do that thing that makes me happy.
So what about that sense of people will say that you will lose your freedom? Like that doesn't sound freeing when you have to have structure in place.
Right. So that's your piece around the riverbank, right? If you
Yeah.
don't have a riverbank, you're just going to have a flood. And I think there's some pushback. So when we're in the untrue feminine, we don't want any rules. Everything goes, do whatever you want, just do whatever you want. But there's a part of us, that inner child part of us, that needs some structure,
Yeah.
right? If left to our own device, I don't know about you, but if there was no rules, like, I don't know if I would, well, maybe
You have examples from your life where you were kind of in your untrue feminine?
I've been struggling more with the entry masculine most of my life.
now, but like, but there wasn't there a time, like, especially remember when you got married, it's like you didn't want rules, you didn't want structure,
I
and
just went to do whatever. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I
yeah.
guess yeah. So I guess that's true. So I didn't have a like a routine.
Thought you would go there, so I'm like, I'll just guide you there.
Yeah. It's like no, there wasn't. Yeah, that's true. So when we first got married, I didn't want to feel trapped,
Yeah.
right? But the problem was I had no rhythms or routines to my day. So life felt very empty, right? Even though I was doing stuff
Mhm.
that I wanted to do, there was no kind of sense of like purpose or direction. It was just like, "Well, you will see, you will see."
Yeah.
So I guess
I
that
think
would be the time.
it's possible, yeah, and I think one of the challenges is like when we don't have structures, and this is something I'm struggling with, right? Like around food and all of those things, right? It's that when the structure is not in place, it's like, well, it's more freeing if there's no structure. Yet, what it causes is all of these other emotions that come with, like, oh, like I messed up again. I did that, right?
Yeah.
Like, so actually, if there was structure in play, and this is something you've gone through with your kind of work that you did on your own food addiction, right?
Hmm.
Is that you found a structure, and you found that because there were these rules in place, and you you kind of maneuvered within the the banks,
Hmm.
right? But it's you stayed within it. It actually gave you more freedom because you
More
weren't you,
freedom.
you weren't thinking about, oh, why do I do this? Why, like, no, I
Yeah.
just don't do it,
So for
right?
an example of that with bright line eating, it's 3 meals a day, right? So I only eat at meal times. I don't eat outside of meal times. And that structure has freed me because I'm not thinking about food all the time, right? As somebody who has a food addiction, like food is always on my mind if I let it be. But now I know I don't have to think about food because it's not time to eat. Right? So just that simple rule of 3 meals a day and no food in between, that at first it felt restrictive,
Yeah.
right? For the first like 2 or 3 months as I was doing it, but the more and more I did it, now it's like it's a safety net for me
Mm,
to have that three
right,
meals a day.
right. So I think, yeah. So I think for me, it was just like understanding, right? Like that the structure is not there to impede on our freedoms.
So then
It's,
here's the other piece though.
yeah,
So now we talk about archetypes,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So one of the things that happens when we go too much into either one is that some part of us will pop up, which is the rebel. So if we're too rigid with ourselves, there will be a part that pops up that says, I don't want rules. And if we're too loosey goosey with ourselves, there's a part of us that pops up that says, I need some rules, right? So it's about balance. It's about and in any given like week or month, you might have more structure or more in the flow, but it's kind of calibrating. So an example would be this weekend, right? I had these papers I had to mark. Like I knew by Sunday night I have to finish these papers. And yet I had all these other tasks as well, and I wanted some downtime. And so I had to kind of like really pay attention to when I had the energy and the brain power to mark, and when I needed to take a break and maybe just hang out with my kids, or maybe, do some plant stuff or something else. But in the past, I would have like forced myself to do the work, and I would have been irritated. I would have been grouchy. I would have been snapping at people because I'm like, I have to finish my work and get out of my way and da, 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 da. And so giving myself more time, like usually I would cram it into that last, 3 or 4 hours. I gave myself from Friday to Sunday. So I opened up my window so it wasn't so much pressure. And then I followed my rhythm through that 3 days. And every time guilt would pop up, I would just say, no, thank you. No, thank you. Right? Because I don't want to feel resentful about work. I want to feel like I'm enjoying my work. But it's not going to happen if I'm feeling guilty when I rest.
Mhm. What about altered states of consciousness and how that can get us in touch with our masculine and feminine energies? So things
That's a
like,
big jump.
okay, no, I mean, so there's a thing that, I mean, it's just an interesting because this is something we're learning, right?
Yeah.
It's like things like breath work, meditation. Um,
All of those things get us in touch with the feminine. And when we're in touch with the feminine,
yeah.
right? When we're back in touch with the flow state, then we can use the masculine to help us.
So how do you, again, like, how do you build that?
Okay,
touch
so for
point.
example, meditation, right? So when we're engaged in meditation, that's a very feminine activity. But to have the discipline to say, okay, every day at this time, I'm going to meditate,
Right.
that's the masculine principle. So we use the masculine to support that feminine
Right.
thing,
Right.
right? But if we say, nah, maybe I'll meditate, maybe I won't meditate, we'll see, whatever, then we don't actually get the same benefit as if we
Yeah.
had a regular practice.
Right. Okay.
It's like exercise, right? So the good feeling that I get when I'm whatever working out, well, I need to make it to the gym. Like that's the masculine part, is to kind of get there
Yeah.
and then have the experience of that flow and that.
And if people are struggling with that masculine,
Yes.
how do they how do they work? Like, so okay, so I know I need to meditate more. I'm being guided. I'm being asked to do this or that or the other. Right?
Mhm.
I know what the flow wants me to do,
Okay,
but how do I build a
can I
system?
tell you what I just learned yesterday in my course?
Okay.
Okay, so this woman talks about the wild five, the five elements of self-care. Let's see if I can remember them off the top of my head, okay? So exercise, mindfulness, nutrition, so movement, mindfulness, nutrition, social support, and sleep. Okay, those are the five elements of self-care. She calls them the wild five. And she said that there's one that's the hardest to do, like most people have a most hard time doing it, and then there's one that makes the biggest difference. Okay, so if you do this one, it makes all the difference, and there's one other one that is the hardest to do. So what do you think they are? Here, take a guess. What's the hardest one to do of those five?
For people or
Consistently.
for everyone?
Consistently for people in general.
Movement?
What do you think? People in the room, type it in the chat. What's the hardest one?
Movement or sleep?
Is the hardest one to change or to do consistently? The hardest one to do consistently.
I would think so, yeah.
Movement or change? Okay.
Or nutrition, maybe.
Somebody's saying exercise.
I can say all five.
So people say, so the one that makes the biggest difference if we do it, that trumps everything else, is exercise.
Right.
So if we do exercise, it'll change the whole game. It's the most important out of the five. The one that's the hardest for people to do regularly is meditation or mindfulness.
Okay.
So that's kind of the interesting research information. So if we're saying for you meditation, well, the reason we find it, so first of all, know that you're not the only one, right? Lots of people.
I'm not special.
You're not special. Lots of people find it challenging to do a regular mindfulness practice. And part of the reason for that is because when they think about meditation, they think about sitting still with your eyes closed and doing something, right? That's how they see meditation. But mindfulness and meditation are two different things. So mindfulness is being present to this moment right now. We can do that right now. Let's all do that right now. So just take a moment and look around your space. Just let your eyes wander around the space that you're in. Let them land on different things, different colors, different shapes. And notice as you do that, your breathing might just shift. Maybe, maybe not. Then your thoughts will come and go, but just be with your eyes. Just notice how things look. So that's mindfulness. That's present, being aware to the present moment, being within the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
We can do that in any of our day-to-day activities that we have. Imagine if we were making dinner but doing it in a mindful way, right? Imagine if we were taking the dog for a walk but in a mindful way. So it's not about a meditation practice, though that's beneficial for people. It's about bringing mindfulness more and more into our day-to-day life. And if we have a meditation practice, it's much easier to be mindful through the day. So it is linked, right? So somebody asked, why is that? I think the question is, why is that meditation is the hardest thing or mindfulness is the hardest thing? Again, they're two different things, first of all. So Or why is it that exercise is,
Well, I think probably mindfulness. I'm going to
yeah,
assume it's because we got to be present with ourselves.
exactly.
A lot of us, including me,
Yeah.
very uncomfortable spending time with myself, like fully,
Present, just
fully
being
present,
present in this moment.
fully present with the pain,
And
with the
people
sadness,
people say
with the
meditation
joy, all of those
people
things.
say meditation is hard. And yes, any new skill that we're learning is challenging, but the way that they were explaining it to me yesterday is like, well, how do you get a toddler to sit down? How do you get a toddler to sit still?
Toddler,
Yeah.
just tell them to sit,
Really?
and then sit with them, and then they would
So the
start running,
way
and then they no, you're gonna sit.
the way that you get a toddler to sit still is you let them go run in the park,
Right.
right? You let them run
Yeah.
and run and run and run and run and
Well,
run
I
and
think
run till
that
they're
that was
tired.
so. I mean, this is the other part, right? Like, especially our meditation. It's that the rest of your life has to support this particular practice, right? So sleep, you got to sleep properly on that, which means that like you got to be rested. You got to have. Yes, the thoughts are gonna run,
So we,
but
we, we let
all of
so
them.
that
Yeah.
that's why people find it hard, is because they think they have to do something.
Yeah.
And it's like, what if we approach meditation as just, I'm just observing. I'm just witnessing and watching this interesting mind of mine. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to change it or stop the movement or do the burning of the coal exercise. What's the burning of the coal exercise?
This is you.
Did I bring that up?
Yeah. One of our one of the triplets burned. Is that
Oh
what the?
yes, the burning of the,
Yeah.
right. So it's like, oh, this thing happened,
Yeah.
right? We burn. So the burning of the coal. I love that it's become an exercise. I love that. So what happened? Here's the story for those who might have missed it. My niece, we were doing some like lighting some incense and doing some things, and so we lit a coal and put some oud on it, and which is like a scented wood on the coal, and then there's like a scent that comes out. And so they were doing their little thing and blessing themselves, and then somebody dropped the whole thing, and the whole thing crashed, and the coal is on the floor on the hardwood. And so I'm like running around picking up the coal, and my niece was worried that I was upset with her, and she's 2, right? So she could barely even get the words out of what her problem was. And what we did was we just said, "Oh, it's no big deal. It just fell down. It's okay. Just pick up the coal. It's not a big deal." And we didn't make a big. We tried not to make a big deal or make anybody feel bad. So similar, I think this person's saying similar approach with our own mind, right? That, oh, interesting. This mind today, I'm really thinking about Walmart. It's just on my mind. I don't know why Walmart. Walmart's on my mind, or whatever
Well, I
might
think
be
with
rolling.
and with meditation, there's and just like with anything in life, it's like, well, I must get to enlightenment. Right? Like there's this. So if I'm making progress, okay, fine. But all of a sudden, I can't concentrate today. When for the last 2 days, I've been
But
able to
but think
concentrate.
about this. Like, again, what is the objective, right? So meditation also helps us with emotion regulation. It helps us strengthen our frontal cortex. It creates the possibility for neurogenesis, which is brand new brain cells in the brain. It creates opportunities for new synaptic connections in the brain. None of this you can measure, like, unless you have really fancy tools and you're in a lab, right? So things can be happening that you don't even know about,
I
because
know, but that's what I'm saying. It's like there we've
so the
got this.
progress is not
Yeah,
like measurable.
right. And even if it was, it's gonna change, right? Like it's. I think we're so goal oriented rather than system oriented. Like I was listening to something, and they're like, forget the goals, build the systems, right? Just build a system and
Mm.
forget the because we're so like because sometimes we might be like, oh yeah, I want to reach this goal, and if we just have a system, we might be able to go further. We won't limit ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? But like with this, we must be enlightened. Nobody knows what that means. Right? If somebody did get enlightened, they're not coming back and telling us, "Oh yeah, this is exactly what you're going to experience," right?
One of my
So
teachers talks about, so Susan Pierce Thompson, the Bright Line Eating lady, she talks about sitting quietly with your thoughts. She says,
yeah,
don't even call it meditation.
yeah,
Call it, I'm just sitting here quietly with my thoughts.
yeah,
And you can set a timer for that, for 5 minutes or 7 minutes or 12 minutes or something small. So someone's saying, I think I might have missed one. Exercise, sleep, nutrition. So not meditation, mindfulness. So exercise, so
And
movement.
movement.
So not necessarily exercise, but movement, sleep, nutrition, mindfulness, and connection, social connection, connection to others.
Yeah.
Those are the five.
Yeah. And somebody's saying like they like the build a system. And like I said, I've been listening to Cal Newport. I'm reading his book around deep work. And part of it is he talks about, he's talked about, others have talked about how building a system, okay,
I always
we,
wanted to be Vanna. Wait.
with the book.
It's so cute. It's like a yellow, bright yellow book.
Yeah, so
Rules for focused success in a distracted
good world.
world.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I think part of it is just that we, if we just kind of commit to a system, working that system. So like you said, right, like if we focus on movement and sleep and nutrition and mindfulness, what was the last one?
Social support.
Social support, right?
So
Of course, I'm gonna miss that one.
of course.
I'm a loner.
So movement, even right. So one of the teacher was talking about in the class I took yesterday that even movement, you're probably already moving. Like you get up off the couch and you walk outside, and you do something, and you bend down to put the dishes in the dishwasher, and we're already moving through our day. And so, what if we could be aware and present to that movement? Even the regular day to day movement that we're doing. Maybe it's not about going to the gym for an hour a day for you, right? Maybe that's not the movement that works in your life story. But is there movement that could work? My therapist and I were talking about movement, and I go for a walk every morning with my dog, right? Like it's not my choice, it's the dog's choice, but it has to happen. And it's probably about half an hour ish, maybe sometimes 45 minutes is the walk. And so my counselor was saying, she's like, well, don't you go for like a daily hike? And I was like, no. And she's like, don't you live on a mountain? And I said, yeah. And she's like, well, isn't that a hike then, up and down the mountain? And I really thought about it. And I was like, you know,
Not really, but okay.
but it
We
is.
live on a hill, and yes.
Okay, so there's pavement, so maybe that way it's not a hike. But you know what, that last part where we go in the forest, I'm like,
Yeah.
look, I'm doing my hike. And since I've started framing it to myself that way, that like, hey, every day I'm going on a half an hour hike, like that's something, right? Just the thing that I've always been doing, just calling it something different. And it's because we were joking, right? She's like, okay, what is the difference between a walk and a hike? And we kind of like really broke it down. And it's like up and down hills, right? At a manageable pace. Okay, that's my hike. And there's no like vista at the end. I just get to put the dog poo in the garbage. Like that's the destination. there's no vista. But it reframed my own attention that I'm paying to the movement that I'm already doing every day. Right? So we don't have to be so hard on ourselves, because what the masculine principle can do is become a driver. Right? And make us feel like I'm not doing enough and I'm never doing enough and I just need to be doing more things. And it's like, but that's not helpful. That's just now making you feel like a failure.
Yeah.
Rather than moving you forward in the direction of your goals.
Yeah. Yeah. So
yes, I go on a daily hike,
on a daily
45-minute hike every day.
Sometimes I join you.
I'm gonna call it a hike.
Okay.
Okay.
Do whatever you need.
Clear.
Do whatever makes you happy, man. Somebody's saying, so the masculine is the part about getting out of inertia.
Yes, good one. That's a great way of putting it. It's what kind of that oomph, that doing, that click that gets us moving. Very good way of putting it. Getting out of inertia. I need to enlist the masculine on that. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you still didn't fully answer.
Did I go on a tangent?
I can't control you going on a tangent. It's just...
It's part of the charm.
Sure, yeah, let's call it that. What do those deep states, so whether it's through meditation,
transformational states,
breath work, hypnotherapy, anything that kind of gets you into that deeper state, how, like...
Okay.
So how do you get, I mean, once you get in touch with flow, but like, how do you listen to it?
Jeez. I'm just rolling on this chair. Okay. So,
That's why it's got wheels, you know, it kind of rolls.
okay, so let's think of states of mind. Let's talk about your states of mind first, okay? So the conscious, the up. Okay, so think about your mind, your consciousness as a tree, okay? So your conscious mind is the branches and the leaves. That's what you see. And that changes with the seasons, and there's leaves and there's flowers, and that's your conscious mind. Your subconscious mind is the trunk of the tree. So it influences all of that, but you don't really notice it or pay attention to it unless you're like looking for something, and then you'll pay attention to it. So the subconscious mind registers things that you're not consciously aware of, like, for example, where the windows are in the room. You already picked that up. As soon as I asked you, you could figure out, you could point to it in your mind. So that's a subconscious, that's a, registering on the subconscious level. Then there's the unconscious level. And so the unconscious level is the root system. And that root system was developed in our first 5 years of life. And it feeds everything else. It feeds what we pay attention to, what we notice, how we notice, who we think is safe and unsafe. All of those things are influenced by that unconscious root system underground. Okay. And then if we want to take it to the even next level is the what we call the collective unconscious. And that's like the whole root system, not just of your tree, but of all the trees in the forest. That's the collective unconscious, which is a whole nother story for another time. So using that description of consciousness, we can actually plot the masculine and the feminine onto that description. Okay. So the masculine principle is the conscious mind, the doer, the thinker, the knower. That's the masculine. The feminine principle is the unconscious mind. Okay, so the feeler and the sensor. So the knowing that's not really logical knowing, but like an intuitive felt sense knowing. That's where I would put the feminine, is in that unconscious space underground.
And what's in between?
I haven't thought that far.
It's the play where the feminine tells the masculine, "Do this." Um, um, what?
Because we can still access this. This now I have to think about that.
Yeah.
I don't know where I would put the subconscious, because that's just under. So in altered states of consciousness, we can enter into the subconscious. We can also enter into the unconscious. So when you're meditating, for example, we're entering the sub and the unconscious parts of the mind. And so in the meditation, you're experiencing your feminine self.
Yeah.
Getting to sitting on the thing, that's the masculine principle.
Right.
And then thinking about what you experience in the meditation afterwards, that's again the masculine.
And then how do you let it flow? How do you actually let it impact you in your day to day life? So let's say I experience something in meditation. How do I now bring it into my life? And maybe that's the struggle, right? I don't know. Maybe there is a um, maybe there's that's a deeper conversation. I know is this is a struggle I think a lot of us have. Is that okay? If I get in touch with this flow and the flow is asking me to do things that I don't really want to do, that I don't really
Like
want
stop eating meat.
to, like stop eating meat and
Like I
um,
just, do you know that I don't eat meat now these days for the
yeah.
last 4 months? It's the weirdest thing. I used to love my meat, but just I was just told, I was just instructed, no
So
more meat.
yeah, but it changes, right? It impacts your life, and it may impact your life. So it's like I think
So
that's the work that's the integration work, right? That has to happen.
right, because
Is now
otherwise
how
it's
do I
just.
take this message and how do I integrate
And to
it?
be honest, the deepest integrations happen using feminine modalities like art, journaling, um, dreaming about it, like non-conscious, non-rational. So like the poetry and the art and the music is how we integrate it best. If you try to talk about an experience, so I have this experience, right? Because I work with a lot of people who are interested in altered states of consciousness and spiritual experiences and that, and they try to talk about those things, and it's very hard to find language, rational scientific language, that explains those experiences, and so they end up having to use metaphors that kind of point to the experience but can't speak about it directly. And that's because we're playing in that feminine space that's more formless, right?
Hmm.
Remember, it's like a circle, it's like a blob. Whereas the masculine, there's a direction and it's very clear.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I mean this we're working on this
Oh, look at this.
big program of ours. I think that's the part where we're trying to figure out, right? Like, is how do we help people integrate this
Look at these
information?
great questions. Okay, so when someone relapses, are they leveraging more feminine energy? When someone relapses, they're what we would call that in the untrue feminine, right? Because now you don't have structure at all, and you're kind of like grinding in this muck. You're in the swamp. So that'd be the untrue feminine when we're relapsing out of the structure. Because the true feminine energy, you wouldn't need any substance except your own. You won't need anything outside of yourself to feel satisfied when you're truly in the feminine flow. Because you have, think about this like the great mother, right? Great mother nature. We're in touch with that all that isness of life when we're in the feminine, the true feminine. Maybe there could be a collective conscious too. Yeah, so there is a collective conscious, and you can kind of feel that in different spaces. So like in our small town, there's a particular conversation, like a conscious conversation that happens that's different than where we grew up or where we lived last, right? What people are talking about, what they're paying attention to, what they're showing. There's a tone around that. And then you have to decide, does this match my own frequency? But then the next part of that sentence is really beautiful. It says, all of humanity working, being in the flow, working towards the all good for everyone. Wouldn't that be beautiful if that was our collective consciousness to say we're here to help and we're here to move towards good for all involved? That'd be amazing. And I think there's pockets of those groups. I think there are circles and groups that are trying to do that work. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's different experiences as well, right? Like, so this good for all might not be for all, but it might be for uh, it, that it doesn't interfere with others and what they really want to experience out of life, right? I think that's a big thing. So that when we talk about the untrue masculine, right? Like, it's this conformity to structure without any compassion, right?
That's a
So
good way of putting it.
it's
Yeah.
without compassion for our own needs. It's full of judgment. Like, hey, if you don't park the car right at this spot, right, like, and plug it in,
I didn't
you
plug
know,
it in today.
I think I did,
Yeah.
but because you don't plug it in, so I just judge you. Uh, but like, that's the untrue masculine, right? Like, because it takes away from the actual flow of the family,
Right.
right? So it's like, you didn't do this, and I, right, like, throws the energy off in the house, and it throws the energy off for the family, right? So it actually gets in the way
Mm-hmm.
rather than supporting. Like, oh yeah, let's plug it in. It's okay. We can just go out and plug it in, done, and then move on, right? Rather than it being
But the untrue feminine too. Sorry, the untrue masculine also really lives in right and wrong.
yeah, yeah,
Right? Like
absolutely.
there's
There's
a
a
right way and there's a
uh,
wrong way, and if you do it the wrong way, then I'm going to judge you.
yeah,
If I do it the wrong way, I'm going to judge myself.
right.
Right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think it leaves room for compassion.
Right.
It doesn't leave room for other people's experience, right? Like, so sometimes in this sense of doing good for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
right? It can get in the way of what they want to experience.
Say more about that.
So like, like, so let's say I'm of a particular faith tradition,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
And I think if you learned how to practice the faith the way I do, you'd have you know
Your life would be
your
best.
life would be best.
Right.
Rather than saying, okay, how do you actually experience divinity?
Hmm.
And letting you experience and express divinity that way rather than my way, right? Because then it becomes this right wrong, and I think sometimes that's why I'm saying, like, it can get in the way,
Right.
because it doesn't allow for that beauty to say, oh, there's a there's lilies and then there's daisies, right?
Faison knows flower names.
That's it. Those are two.
Wow. I am impressed.
Yeah,
What do you know what my favorite flower is?
lily.
Good job.
That I knew from before. Yeah. Thank you.
Sky.
I get all the points today. I'm done.
But which
I'm a great
lilies? You know
husband.
which lilies?
I don't care.
So many kinds.
Oh, I know. I know there is.
Do you know what they look like? Come on. You're.
Listen, listen. I already. Yes, yes. I'm a
I want to
failure.
know. Do you
I'm
know
a failure
it?
as a
Do you
husband.
know it?
I'm a failure as a husband.
But do you know it?
What?
My favorite kind. Come on, Faze. You got this.
I know. When I go to the store, I know
Does
which one.
anybody on the? I know there's people on the call
I
who
know.
know.
I know when I go to the store which one to get. When I see it, I know it.
So someone's saying, I was wondering if we could link what we're learning today to what you introduced us to the concept of guilt and shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. So guilt and shame, I think, are at the untrue places on both sides, right? So in the untrue feminine, there's a lot of guilt and shame of like, I'm not doing enough, I'm a failure, I'm not working hard enough, there's a problem with me. And on the untrue masculine side, there can be more like blame, right? And blame and guilt as well, because it's judgment of others is really harsh and critical, judgment of self is really, so if we're in the extremes, in the rock or the swamp, that's where the guilt and shame show up. So if we're trying to move more to the middle, when we're in the river, when we're in the flow, when we have the structures that we need, but we're able to be in the flow, there's no real room or need for shame, which is there's something wrong with me, and guilt, which is I've done something wrong. Even if I've done something wrong, can I learn from it,
Mm.
repair the rupture, and move on? Right? You don't need to like wallow in the guilt of it. You can just move on.
Lucas says yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
To what part, Lucas? The flowers?
That I don't know the flower. I don't know Sarah's favorite flower unless I
Does
see
anybody
it.
know? Who
No.
knows? Write it in the chat if you know. What kind of lily is the favorite lily? Do you know?
What
Do you
is it?
really not know?
I know when I see it. I'm telling
What does
you.
it look like? Describe it.
It's like this color, orange
It's
color.
color. It's this
Don't put me.
color.
Don't put me on the spot. I always bring you the lilies when I see it.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. All right.
Yeah.
There will be a quiz.
No, but I think that the idea of guilt and shame, I think that's where it catches up, right? We've talked about this where when it starts attacking our identity, where the shame with yeah, so where we see our identity being questioned, I find that to be the untrue masculine that kind of shows up, right? That says right or wrong, right? Do it this way or not,
Right.
right? Like so, and that becomes when it becomes a question of I am worthy, right? Because then I'm questioning my identity.
Mm-hmm.
Is like something is wrong with me. I feel like that becomes the untrue masculine. When there's like, oh, I did this wrong. Can't believe I said that. I can't believe
That victim
the
feeling sorry
victim
for
feeling. Yeah,
myself. Yeah.
that becomes the untrue
Feminine.
feminine.
Somebody's saying probably a tulip. Man, not
It's
a
not a tulip.
tulip.
Lucas and I are gonna be in a doghouse. I already live there. I don't know why Lucas wants to join me there. No, so I think yeah.
So let's
Yeah.
talk about flowers for a minute.
Go
Yeah.
for it.
So
Tell people your favorite flowers. Maybe I'll remember it.
stargazer lilies,
Stargazer lilies.
or those white.
The white
The
lilies.
white lilies are okay
Yeah.
too,
Yeah. Okay.
but the stargazer lilies are the favorite. Um, so why do we like flowers? Why do some people really love flowers? Because it's an act of the feminine. What are you saying? Remember? Oh my gosh, he just wrote down stargazer lilies. Remember, dumbass. He wrote a note to himself. Oh my gosh. So I like flowers because they're now he's saying mums. No. No, Lucas, no, not mums. I do like mums for the garden, but
Yeah.
not for myself. The reason I like flowers is because it's a gesture of like indulgence to me, right? It's like, here, enjoy this beautiful thing for a limited amount of time. It's very much a feminine gesture, right? That's why I love it, because it's like, it's so indulgent to me to have flowers.
And when it goes, it's not going away. Like there's things happening, right, with lilies. is that lilies? Then like I forget which flower, right? Like there's things
Underground.
underground that are like
Well, that's
more.
cut flower, like the difference between cut flowers and planting a garden,
Yeah.
right? So when my lilies come up in the garden, that's a particular experience, especially because I planted them for like in memory of my aunt. So when the lilies come up, I think of her,
Mm.
and then they open, and then the flower dies, but the leaves stay there, and the leaves actually absorb the sunlight to strengthen the bulb, which is underground. So
Hmm.
all that happens when it's, but I have to, like, as a
And then the next
gardener.
season, but I think a lot of us focus so much on that experience. And I think this is why meditation is hard. Is that experience of like I need to be the flower,
Right.
but the flower only stays for
Short,
a
short,
short
short
amount
time.
of time,
Yeah.
right? But all of the work that's
The
happening through the
plant is
winter,
actually not
yeah,
the flower.
right? Like
Right.
for the 10 months out of the year,
There's no flower.
there's a lot of like regular work that the flower is doing,
Right.
taking in the energy, taking in the water, building its roots and getting strong. And then for 2 months shows its flowers and goes
Not
away.
even two
Not
months.
even, yeah,
Like two
6 weeks.
weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
2 weeks. Okay. So I think that's just that's the background, right? Like of it. It's like we focus so much on the flower, but the flowering is only for a moment.
Right.
The work, the systems that we were talking about earlier, that has to be done well in advance and has to be a continuous work.
Somebody's asking, just a curiosity, how can one do a hypnotherapy course to become a hypnotherapist without a psychology background, without a master's of psychology?
Yeah, I'm not trying to do hypnotherapy for people. I think it's just it was an interest. So I'm taking the course from that
Yeah,
perspective.
from
Yeah.
like a learning about states of consciousness, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and supporting people when it,
And
but
you
yeah,
can
no.
you can be a psychotherapist though without a master's. There are programs that people can
Right.
do, that are not master's programs, that are really really valid and really, like I actually teach students in some of those programs. So there are ways to help people and not necessarily do the master's program, but
Yeah.
that's for another time. I love flowers and I buy them and let my husband know that he got them for me. There's an indescribable beauty in the flowers, especially the stargazer
Mm,
lilies. My thoughts.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, um,
So this person's interested in, letting them know about. So if you look into, there's lots of different like schools, like diploma programs.
diploma programs.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
Stenberg is where I used to teach. They have a diploma program in counseling. There's lots of others, so you can kind of look into it if you're interested in pursuing that without the master's.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I think we're close to our end time.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this after today we have two more Monday musings. Please continue joining us and sending us questions. We've loved it so far,
And
and
then we're gonna be posting some of our older
yeah,
episodes on
we're gonna
YouTube.
figure, yeah,
It'll take some
slowly.
time, but we'll slowly start posting these on our YouTube Monday Musings playlist, and
Yeah,
so then you'll be able to go back and watch them, because we've been running it for 2 years, so we have lots
yeah,
of different ones, and you can pass them along to people and like and comment and all those things. Even if, you were there the first round, you might find things that are still valuable in the second or third viewing.
um,
Focus for next month. Okay, so next Monday we're going to actually be talking about endings and closure, which is not necessarily what my video is about, but it's just because our group is closing and ending. We're going to do some work around that, so that we're all ready for that.
yeah. So I think people are asking. I don't know if you can send out an email.
I wouldn't. I would just say look into Stenberg
Oops,
College
what did I do?
as the first step for those who are interested in looking into becoming a psycho. And you might not be called a psychotherapist. You might be called like a registered therapeutic counselor. There's other language, but there's some excellent programs. I'm going to ask you to do that research, because there's lots and lots of programs and it depends on your interest and things like that. But if you look into Stenberg College, that's one.
Yeah,
There'll be
Stenberg.
many.
There's others, and again, you're not a clinical counselor. You're
A therapeutic
therapeutic
counselor,
counselor.
but you're still working with people and
Yeah,
supporting them.
and from insurance, where some insurance cover it, some don't. So it's yeah. I know there's a whole system that's trying to work in place to get everybody worked up. Okay, we're gonna end our streaming. Thanks to
Okay.
everyone on Facebook.